Did anyone not get one? Can we get a note card and pen or pencil to those individuals? What is it? Do one idea. I don't know. What am I doing? Okay, that's better. Thanks. Okay, everyone good to go? Dr. Taylor needs a note card and a pencil. Okay, so I want you to take that note card and that pen or pencil that you got when you walked in, and I want you to get ready to write. Okay, now before you start writing, I want you to switch to your non-dominant hand. So if you are right-handed and you now have that pen or pencil in your left hand, I want you to write "I am left-handed" 3 times and sign your name. If you are in fact left-handed, switch to your right hand and write "I am right-handed" 3 times and sign your name. If you're ambidextrous, I don't know, just play along. Okay, hopefully people are getting close to being done wrapping up. Real quick, let's take a look at my card that I have up here for you. Now, I don't know about you all, but I'm certainly convinced. Okay, so being gay or straight is no more a choice than being right or left-handed. And I like this comparison better than the comparison of race that is sometimes used, because race, there is no question of choice. You're one race or the other, and there's no perception of choice. But with handedness, like being gay, there is this, it's an internal orientation, and it's a little blurrier. Is it a choice or not? People aren't sure because they can't see it on the outside. Interestingly, many scholars and writers have actually likened, I don't know what's going on with there, but we're just going to go with it, have actually likened gayness to being left-handed. So people don't choose their handedness, just like they don't choose to be gay. And actually, it occurs in about the same frequency in the population, being left-handed and being gay. There's also a range for preference, from being purely right-handed to purely left-handed, which I guess gives a whole new meaning to the word ambidextrous. There's nothing about being left-handed or gay that hurts anybody else, but up until about 50 years ago, in schools in the United States, if you were left-handed, they tried to teach kids to be right-handed because they thought that people that were left-handed were unnatural and weak. And there's even a word that means evil. Am I still on? Yeah. Thanks. There's even a word that means evil that's derived from left-handedness, and that word is sinister. Being left-handed was considered to be the sinister sin. So, and there's several passages in the Bible that actually refer to being left-handed as being sinful. So being gay or straight is no more a choice than being right or left-handed. But being born one way or the other doesn't mean that you don't have any choices. It's not a sentence to a predetermined life. And the most important choice you can make is to live an open and authentic life. And that's really what my words of wisdom are for you today. That it's important, that it's our duty to live openly and authentically. And ultimately, that's the reason that I'm giving this talk today, because I think it's important to live openly and authentically. As a gay person, the word choice is especially charged. So ironically, there are people out there that want to frame up being gay as a choice in order to limit the options that gay people have. So you shouldn't have access to marriage, shouldn't be able to have kids, adopt kids, you shouldn't have protection from discrimination in your jobs or otherwise. If you choose to be gay, so the argument goes, then this is who you are and what you can be. If this is the lifestyle that you've chosen to live, then these are what your options are. Live separately, hidden, shamed. But the truth is that being gay is not a choice. And I think it's important that we discuss this up front because this is an idea that's still very pervasive in our society today, that being gay is a choice. So first, I just want to talk about the facts. So the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics have all said, after years of research, that being gay is not a choice and it's something that cannot be changed. And it's because of this research that the state of California very recently, I don't know if anyone saw this in the news, outlawed the practice of reparative therapy for gay kids, which that practice is trying to change someone's sexual orientation. They've outlawed that because it is so damaging to people and their self-esteem and the depression that is associated with that. Aside from the medical research, some anecdotal evidence, suicide rates among gay youth it's the highest rate of suicides among any youth group. And I'm sure that if it were simply a choice, they would simply choose otherwise. On a personal level, for being gay, for me, was not a choice. I grew up in a small Catholic, conservative town, and being gay was not something that people were excited about. And it took me a long time to figure out, I mean, growing up, no one ever talked about the word gay. I didn't know anybody that was gay. I remember being in high school, and I don't know if anyone remembers the show Dawson's Creek that used to be on TV, but they had a gay character on that show, and I remember being like, whoa, something about that rings true to me. And being in high school, I dated boys because, hey, I went to a Catholic high school, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And it never felt right. It felt less natural than trying to write left-handed when I'm really right-handed. But that's what that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And it wasn't until I had my first girlfriend, or I was in my first gay relationship, that was the first time that I realized, it was like that aha moment. Oh my gosh, this is it. This is what has been missing, that missing piece in my life. And that's a story that I hear from other people that I know that are gay, my friends that are gay, that it took that to be in their first relationship to really realize, yes, this is that piece that was missing all those years. So, being authentic, being true to who I was, it wasn't an easy thing. I got a lot of pushback from my community, people that said that it wasn't right, or you're not accepted here, especially in like the adult population where I went to high school. A lot of my friends were okay, but parents especially were really, really against who I was. So it was certainly, I would say, the lowest point in my life, I mean, in terms of self-esteem and depression, things like that. And it wasn't, I mean, I'm glad I went through it now today, but it was definitely the hardest thing that I've ever gone through. And if being gay were simply a choice, that would have made my life a heck of a lot easier in high school. So, no choices. So being gay is not a choice, and I hope I've established that up front. But that doesn't mean that you don't have any choices. So being gay is not a choice, and so our options there really are limited, but how you live your life as a gay or straight person doesn't have to be limited. You can be married or not married, you can have children or not have children, you can work in the private or public sector, you can be a professional athlete, you can be a member of the clergy, depending on the clergy. The important thing is that we all have the choice to live authentically, and then when we have that choice, that we do so. In my path in life, I have strived to live authentically, and although it has not always been easy, I want to talk about the choices I have made in my life in that journey to live openly and authentically. So the first choice that I had to make in my life was whether or not to come out. And I already talked about coming out in high school. But that coming out process, that decision as to whether or not to hide from the people in your community, is a choice that I've had to make over and over again in my life. And the prescribed version of gay life, and the prescribed narrative, is that, hey, you should be quiet about who you are. Don't make a fuss about it. Don't make people feel uncomfortable. But I think we have a duty to be out in our communities. So Gallup in 2009, and 2009 and the gay rights movement, I mean, that's a lot of time from then until now. But even then, when they did a study on when someone actually knew somebody that was gay, it dramatically changed their opinion on the rights, on gay rights. And it makes sense because you're not taking away the rights of some ambiguous person that you think is weird. You're taking away the rights of your friend, your family member, your neighbor, your coworker, your teacher. You know? And so when we know somebody that's gay, it changes the dynamic. And I think that we have that duty to be open in our communities because they won't know that that diversity exists if you're not out. So, like I said, I've had to make that decision in my life to be out to when I was in high school, when I was in college, with my friends, with my family, with my coworkers, every job that I have taken. So when I went to college, again, so went to Mizzou. But you know, when I went into college, I had to decide: am I going to tell my friends about who I am and the new friends that I had made, and how are those people? Are they still going to be my friends after I tell them the truth? And then every job that I've had since I've left college, I've had to decide when is the right time to be true to who I am, and is that going to change things for me? So the school I was at before I was here at Clayton, Bayless High School in South County, I was out to the faculty and the administration, but I was not out to the students there. Part of it is just in terms of culture, didn't feel like a good place to be out, but also they didn't have a non-discrimination policy like we have here at Clayton that includes sexual orientation. So that means that if a kid or a parent found out I was gay, had a problem with that I could legally be fired for being gay. And this is the case in a lot of school districts, the majority of school districts, in a lot of companies in the United States. There is no protection for gay people in the workplace unless your company or your district specifically decides to include that. And so at Bayless it was a hard thing because I felt a lot of the time like I was a liar. And you know, the kids would ask, so the last year that I was at Bayless, I was pregnant with my son, and so kids would ask, hey, is your husband excited about the baby? No, not really. It's like, how do you answer that honestly without having to worry about the repercussions of that? Would I lose my job and the kind of living in fear? And it's funny now, and I can laugh about it now, but then it was something that I really worried about. So when I came here to Clayton, I had to make another decision about how I was going to live in this place. Was I going to live authentically and openly, or was I going to hide like I did when I was at Bayless? And for all my globies out there, the back to school issue, not this year, but the previous year, the one that we printed in August, I was working on this issue with my kids over the summer, and we had a big story about the adoption of sexual orientation into the non-discrimination policy for the school district of Clayton. And after reading interviews with administrators and board members that were in this article and talking to these kids, I was like, this is the right place at the right time for me to be open. And so I made that decision that I was going to, on day one, if somebody asked me a question, I was going to answer it honestly and just kind of let the chips fall where they may. So we mentioned the non-discrimination policy, and truly that non-discrimination policy puts the Clayton School District on the forefront of progress on this issue in the state of Missouri. I mean, as far as I know, there's only 2 school districts in the state of Missouri that have this kind of a protection for their employees. So it's an important thing. But so even though now I'm out with my family, with my friends, and in my school community, I still sometimes have to make those decisions as to whether or not do I live openly and authentically. So I got a couple examples for you. One, so after my wife and I got married in Massachusetts, we had to come back to St. Louis and get new Social Security cards because we changed our names. And so we're standing in the Social Security card office, and we're standing in independent lines, and the 2 guys that are helping us are looking at our paperwork, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so funny, you guys have the same last names, you married brothers? Like, No, sure did not. You know, and you have to decide, is it worth getting into it at that moment with that person? Or sometimes if I'm at the grocery store with my kids who have very dark hair, they will say, you know, do those kids, do they look like your husband? No, they sure don't, you know? And so it's kind of puts you in one of those strange things, but it is that situation of throughout the course of my life, I'm going to have to make that decision of do I hide or do I live openly and authentically, and I truly believe that we have a duty to do so. Okay, so marriage. So another major decision in my journey, my life journey to live authentically was the decision to get married. And the prescribed narrative of gay life, so the kind of the traditional view of what happens when you're gay is that you don't get married, that you cohabitate for life, that you're boyfriends and girlfriends for life, even if you share a home, finances, family, children, lives, that your status should always remain the same. And when we got married in 2008, I did not know anybody else. I knew a lot of other gay couples. I knew a lot of other gay couples that had children, but I did not know any other gay couples that were legally married and had a legal marriage license. There are 39 states in the United States where it is illegal to be married, or where gay marriage is illegal. There are 7 states where gay marriage is legal in the United States, and those 7 states have decided that to make it legal based on the fact that they realized it was unconstitutional not to allow gay people to get married. There are 1,100 federal benefits to marriage, and I'm going to talk about some of those. But marriage now even is still not the norm for most gay people, but especially in 2008, it was not the norm for most gay people. Now, to kind of frame this up for you guys, so you kind of have an idea of where society was at that time, if you guys are familiar with Proposition 8, was a proposition that was in California. California had legalized gay marriage, and they put gay marriage on a ballot, and then the voters struck it down. And so Proposition 8 made gay marriage illegal in the state of California. That happened in November of 2008. We got married in December of 2008. So that's kind of the climate where we are. And now, you know, if you look at the upcoming election, the state of Maryland is going to do the same thing. They're going to put gay marriage on the ballot. And right now, it's projected to pass by 9 points. So for the first time in history, we might actually have a voter-approved measure of gay marriage. Now, I'm not a big fan of putting people's rights on the ballot, but hey, you know, whatever works, I guess. But also to kind of give you a personal example of the climate at that time, my parents and I were having this conversation, and I should preface this by saying my parents are incredible, supportive, wonderful people, and they have really been amazing on this journey for me. But we're having this conversation about, I was getting ready to go to grad school, and they said something along the lines of, hey, you know what, we're going to help you pay for grad school since we wanted to pay for a wedding. Okay. So, I mean, just the idea that it just wasn't very common, you know, and people just didn't really have that perception that that's what we did. Granted, I took that deal, by the way. They did pay for my grad school. But some people ask, why is marriage important? So some of you guys might have heard of something called civil unions, and there are some states that offer civil unions to couples. It's basically a consolation prize to marriage. I mean, in my opinion, I'm sure other people would feel differently, but that's kind of how I view it. And the reason that I don't think they're good enough is because there's a couple reasons. First, I think separate but equal is not equal. If the government, I'm talking about the government here, not a church, gives out marriages, they shouldn't be discriminatory against couples based on sexual orientation. And it's unconstitutional. In the same way that telling someone based on race that, hey, you can go to school, you just can't go to this school. Or, hey, you can drink out of a water fountain, just not this one. Or, in 1967, so we're not talking 1967, this is not that long ago, that was when a court case went to the Supreme Court to finally say that interracial marriage was legal. That's not a long time ago. And interestingly, that this case was the plaintiffs in this case, the couple, their last name was Loving. The Loving case, you know, how appropriately named, right? And so this couple, they got married in Washington, D.C. So at this point, there were several states that still interracial marriage was illegal in their home state of Virginia. So they went to Washington, D.C. to get married, came back home to Virginia, and the police actually broke down their door in the middle of the night, went into their home, and arrested this couple for being married to one another. And so eventually the Supreme Court case went to, this case went to the Supreme Court, and they said interracial marriage is legal everywhere. And you think about this, and the President of the United States is a child of an interracial relationship. And and I think that is part of the reason that he has come out and said that he now supports gay marriage, because I think when he thinks back about that, he can see the comparisons there. So the idea that civil unions are good enough, it's just they're just not good enough, because I think, and I guess this is a personal thing, but to me as a gay person, civil unions just mean you're not good enough for marriage. Not good enough for the real thing. So that was why it was important for my wife Annie and I to get actually legally married. So we had to travel to Massachusetts in order to get married. And we'll go ahead and go to the next one. So one of the things you have to do when you get married is you have to apply for a marriage license. So we flew into Boston on a Wednesday night, and we had an appointment to meet with the Justice of the Peace to do the ceremony at noon on Friday. And so it was just a Justice of the Peace, the government, City Hall. No, it wasn't a religious ceremony, just a government-sanctioned ceremony. And so we applied for that. We went, so we got in there Wednesday night. Thursday, we went and applied for a marriage license. Now, this is the case in most states, but you have to wait. There's a cooling off period. Once you apply for that marriage license, you have to wait 72 hours in order to use it. And so we didn't have 72 hours because we were going to get married on Friday. So in order to use our marriage license, we had to go get a waiver. And to get a waiver, you have to go to probate court. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever been to probate court, but it's open court, a lot of other people, everybody under the sun is there for any possible reason. And so we had to go, and we waited our turn, a couple hours, and we had to stand in front of a judge, in front of a courtroom of people, and said, we would like to use this marriage license, and we need a waiver in order to do so. Will you give us one? And the judge replied, what's the rush, ladies? And, we told him we were from St. Louis, we were planning on getting married the next day, and he signed the waiver. And it turned out he had spent a long time, lived in St. Louis for a while, was a Cardinals fan, it turned out, and he signed the waiver. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful he was from St. Louis, and thankful that he was a Cardinals fan. But because I don't know, I think that he could have said no, and then we would have traveled far, and that would have been a waste of time. So I'm thankful for that. So let's look. Yeah. So here's the ceremony, and we'll go to the next picture. So this was the Justice of the Peace that did the ceremony. She kind of looks like Robin Lloyd, which is sister. And let's go to the next one. And so on the way back. So when we returned from Boston back to St. Louis, all of the legal recognition that we had from that marriage in Massachusetts, that goes away. It doesn't exist in Missouri. So the moment we get on a plane and we fly to New York and we land, we're married, because New York is a state that recognizes gay marriage. When we come back to St. Louis, not married. I could drive across the country and it would, change depending on what state I'm in. And there are a lot of legal protections and privileges that are given to married people, and that's part of why marriage is an important thing. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of those things, just to give you an idea of some of that kind of discrimination that we face. The name change. So I mentioned the Social Security card office where we had to go get our names changed. So when heterosexual couples get married, they get to change their name. It doesn't cost them anything. It's just like they get married and they take each other's names, and that's it. We had to go to a lawyer, go before a judge, ask to get our names changed here in St. Louis, and it was several $1,000s to do that, to make that happen. we have gone to an attorney to get paperwork drafted up that gives us healthcare power of attorney for each other. So, for example, when I was in the hospital giving birth to our son, that they can't tell my wife, no, you're not allowed to be here because you're not her next of kin. And so we travel with those documents in the event that we're somewhere and something bad happens, and we want to be able to go with that person in the ambulance. Retirement benefits. If one of us dies, we've had to have papers drafted by an attorney, and every time you talk about an attorney, you're talking about a lot of money. All those folks out there that want to be lawyers someday, but they. So we had to have papers drafted up that said, if something happens to me, this is where my finances will go. And if you're married, it just automatically goes there. For heterosexual couples, you're married, automatically follows that chain and for us, we had to have paperwork in order to protect those things. Okay, so next big decision that I had to make in my life, my journey to live authentically, was the decision on whether or not to have kids. Now, the prescribed narrative of gay life says that gay people don't have kids. And there's actually a lot of people out there that say that gay people are unfit parents. Now, that's simply just not true, to steal Joe Biden's line. It's simply not true. And anybody out there that would like to come and spend a little bit of time with my family and my wonderful, amazing kids, I think would quickly realize that it's not true. But to give you some facts on this, Clark University in Massachusetts, NYU, USC have all done studies on gay parenting, and they have found that gay parents are actually equal, if not better parents, than heterosexual couples. Now, let me explain. So, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it, but the point is that gay people, in order to have kids, either have to go through adoption or IVF process, both of which are very long, expensive things. So people that are gay that want to be parents, they have to go through a lot of effort in order to make that happen, and they're really ready, and they're ready for it. And in the general population, you have a lot more people who accidentally end up having kids. So that's kind of why the statistics are the way that they are. But so, I mean, generally, I would probably say it's just equal. But to give you a personal example, though, about this narrative that gay people don't have kids, a friend of mine, one of our best friends, actually, who went with us on that trip when we got married, when she came out to her parents, they said, her mom was really upset, and she said, "Oh, but honey, you would have had such beautiful children." And I would like to go ahead and dispel this idea that you're not going to have beautiful children right now. Okay. So this is my stepdaughter, Julia. She was 2 when I met her, and my wife and her ex-partner had Julia through the process of in vitro fertilization. They were not married, and that's kind of, to go to that narrative that gay people, a lot of them have kids but aren't married. And so, anyway, she's just a wonderful, amazing, beautiful child. She is, I do all the things that a parent does. I pick her up from school, I pack her lunch, I tuck her in at night, I love her and care for her like any parent would. So 2 years ago, my wife and I decided to add another child to our family. This is Thomas. Tommy. My Globe kids, a lot of you guys have met Tommy several times. So this is Julia holding Tommy in the hospital. She's wearing her big sister t-shirt. She pretty much went home and washed that and then put it back on every day for a week. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is Tommy's doctor's appointment. Really handsome young man. This is Tommy. Okay, so I'm going to stop here real quick. So this picture, you might be like, what are you guys doing with this judge here?
My bad.
Justin. So this was when we adopted Tommy. You might be going, wait, adopted Tommy? Okay, so we did IVF. So the way that this worked was my wife donated an egg, and then I carried the baby. So we wanted both of us to be able to have a part in bringing him into the world. But when in the state of Missouri, because they don't have gay marriage, only one woman is allowed to be on the birth certificate. So when we're in the hospital, they said, you're not allowed, like they would not let Andy be on the birth certificate because they said the mother is the birth mother. So even though biologically she is his mother, she was not allowed to be on his birth certificate. So we had to wait 6 months so that she could adopt him, which is just, it's just crazy. But, and again, we're talking about a lengthy, expensive legal process in order for that to happen. And this is, again, one of the reasons I think it's important that, we have that gay marriage is legal. Here's Tommy. This is him on his first birthday. This is like a super handsome picture, I think. He's wearing a bow tie. These are just some pictures of family pictures. Okay, so my parting words for you today are this. Live authentically. So we all have a responsibility to live an authentic life, to show others that you have options. And I think it's our duty, and I think it's also truly, it's a self-affirming process. And here's my call to action for you guys. So live authentically and own the things that are actually choices. And if you aren't gay, if you're an ally, and I know there's a lot of those in this room, here's what you can do to help. So actively support the people in your lives and communities that are living authentically. Let them know that you appreciate the difficulties they face and that you recognize the strength that it takes for them to be open. Don't be afraid to stand up in the face of discrimination and say what you believe is right. Because I truly believe that one of the best strategies that we have for pushing this movement forward is the voice of allies. Because as a gay person, I'm often dismissed. Yes, of course you feel that way, you're gay. But when somebody stands up that doesn't have skin in the game, it changes the way that somebody might look at this issue. We need you to fiercely protect the authenticity of those around you. And to steal a quote from Dr. Kuczewski from the voluntary transfer story that I just thought was excellent, is that if we're only surrounded by people just like us, it doesn't give us the chance to grow. Now, before you leave today, I want you to go back to the cards that you got when you walked in. And I want you to just take a minute and write down a couple of things that you thought about the talk, and we'll gather those from you guys as you leave. Real quick, you can switch back to your regular. Thank you guys for your time today, and thank you to the WOW Committee for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope that you guys all walk away having learned something